Welcome, everyone, to today's deep dive where we're tackling a huge question. What exactly is knowledge? And how do human and artificial minds stack up?
It's a loaded question for sure, and especially relevant now, right? With AI evolving at breakneck speed, are we really any closer to understanding what separates our intelligence from theirs?
Exactly, and that's what we're going to unpack today. We're going to be drawing from some really interesting work, especially this concept called the Theory of Noémon Systems. Buckle up, it's going to get dense, but hopefully super insightful.
Theory of Noémon Systems, huh? Sounds intriguing. So, what's the core idea here? What problem is it trying to solve?
Well, imagine psychology and AI, right? Both trying to understand the mind, but often speaking completely different languages. This theory is attempting to create a unified framework.
So, a translator between the two fields, in a way?
More than that, it's saying that our current ways of defining things like intelligence and consciousness are just inadequate. They're too fuzzy, too loaded with historical baggage.
Okay, so what's the alternative? What's a Noémon system then?
Think of it as a completely fresh start. It's a way to analyze both biological and artificial systems without automatically favoring one over the other. It's grounded in a materialistic view of the world.
Materialistic, as in everything boils down to physical matter and its interactions?
Precisely. The theory starts by defining what makes a species a Noémon species, essentially a species capable of having minds. There are 4 criteria for that.
All right, hit me with them.
First, they need to have their own representational systems like senses and the ability to move. Second, they need to be able to think. Third, they need to communicate. And fourth, this is the kicker, they need to create permanent external representations.
Permanent external représentation.
So, like writing, art, tools, things that exist outside of their own minds?
Exactly. That fourth condition is what this whole treatise hangs on, because it argues that the ability to create these external representations is what really sets us apart and drives cognitive change.
Hold on, so are you saying it's not just about being smart, it's about what we do with that smartness, what we create and leave behind?
That's the crux of it, and the theory makes a distinction between internal representations, things happening in our brains, and external representations, the stuff we build in the world.
Okay, I'm following. So, where does AI fit into all this?
Well, the really interesting point is that computer programs are seen as a special kind of external representation. They have a degree of autonomy and can process information, which is a huge step in the evolution of intelligent systems.
So, AI isn't just a tool, it's almost like a new life form in its own right?
Not quite, because current AI still relies on humans. But the theory opens the door to the possibility of AI eventually developing its own representational systems, independent of us.
That's a mind-blowing thought. It almost sounds like the seeds of a new kind of evolution are already being sown.
It does, and that leads to the next big idea, this concept of the Great Bifurcation.
Bifurcation, meaning a split or divergence.
Exactly. For over a century, we've been debating what makes humans unique. Darwin argued it was a matter of degree, not kind, that we're just more advanced versions of other animals.
The classic nature versus nurture debate playing out in evolutionary terms, right?
Precisely. But this theory flips that on its head. It argues that the real divide isn't between humans and animals. It's within humanity itself.
Okay, now you've really got my attention. How so?
The argument is that the emergence of written human language, WHuLa, that's not just writing down speech, it's a fundamentally new way of representing knowledge, created a massive split.
So, it's the shift from oral cultures to literate ones that changed everything?
Absolutely. Think about it. Before writing, knowledge was ephemeral, limited to what people could remember and transmit orally. Writing allowed us to store information permanently, to build upon it, and to create abstract concepts that are impossible to fully grasp in a purely oral culture.
Like what? Can you give me an example?
Well, the theory uses molecule or superego as examples. These are complex, theoretical ideas that require a level of precision and abstraction that just isn't possible without written language.
Okay, I see what you mean. So, writing isn't just a tool for recording information, it actually changes the way we think.
That's the key. It's not a biological advantage. It's a technological one that reshaped our cognition, and that's why they call it the engine of Homo artificiality, because we are artificially augmenting our intelligence through external means.
So, our uniqueness isn't something we're born with, it's something we've built for ourselves through technology?
Exactly. It's a profound shift in perspective. The mental gap isn't between us and apes. It's between us and our pre-literate ancestors.
Wow.
That's a really powerful idea. It kind of undermines the whole humans are special argument, doesn't it?
It does, but in a productive way. It forces us to look at what actually makes us different, which is our ability to create and use these external systems of knowledge, and all this emphasis on the physical, the material. They propose a physicalist theory of knowledge.
Okay, break that down for me. What does it mean to have a physicalist theory of knowledge?
It means grounding knowledge not in abstract ideas, but in the physical world, specifically in the workings of the nervous system.
So, knowledge isn't some ethereal thing. It's rooted in the physical structure of our brains?
Precisely. The theory starts with the idea of a neural formation, which is a structure of interacting components in the nervous system, and these structures become meaningful if they help the organism survive or reproduce.
So, meaning isn't just some abstract concept. It's a physical relationship between a neural structure and its impact on our survival?
Exactly. And from there, they define a concept as a system of these meaningful neural formations. It's not about abstract symbols. It's about the dynamic web of connections in our brains.
Okay, so how does this physicalist view connect to the idea of written language and external representations?
Well, the theory argues that abstract concepts are dependent on language, especially written language, because it allows us to create and stabilize concepts that don't have direct sensory reference.
So, language isn't just a way to express existing concepts, it's essential for creating new ones?
That's right, and this physicalist framework also redefines knowledge that and knowledge how. Knowledge that becomes a physical state of a nervous system corresponding to a justified true belief, and knowledge how becomes the physical ability to perform an action.
So, everything boils down to the physical state of our brains?
Ultimately, yes, and from that base, knowledge is built through communication and understanding. It's this constant feedback loop.
How does that feedback loop work?
They call it the communication understanding primitives, CUP, system. It's a cycle where we communicate ideas, understand them based on our existing knowledge, and then refine our understanding through further communication.
Primitives being the basic building blocks of our understanding, the things we take as given?
Exactly, and the key point is that knowledge is both individual and social. Our understanding is built from primitives we acquire through social interaction, and then we bring that understanding back into the social sphere to be tested and refined.
So, objectivity isn't some fixed thing. It's something that emerges from this constant back and forth between individuals?
Precisely. It's an emergent property of intersubjective negotiation, and that leads us to the big question. If all this is true, what are the limits of artificial intelligence?
The million-dollar question. Where does AI fall short?
The theory argues that the big problem is formalized human knowledge, FHK. The core idea is that a representation is always poorer than the thing it represents.
So, you can never fully capture the richness and complexity of reality in a formal system?
Exactly. Human language, for example, has a degree of vagueness that's not a bug, it's a feature. It's connected to this deep well of intuitive, context-rich understanding that AI can't replicate.
So, even the most sophisticated AI will always be missing something crucial?
That's the argument, and this challenges the hype around big data science, the idea that we can just throw massive amounts of data at algorithms and magically get profound insights.
I've heard that argument before, and what's the counter-argument?
The theory says that complex systems are really sensitive to inaccuracies in data, so more data can actually make things more fragile. And as data size increases, the link between correlation and causation gets weaker.
So, without a solid theoretical framework, data is just a bunch of patterns, not actual understanding?
Exactly. Science isn't just about crunching numbers. It requires creativity, theoretical insight, and, crucially, the ability to imbue data with meaning.
Okay, so where does that leave us with AI?
The theory argues that AI operates on formalisms, syntactic structures that lack intrinsic meaning, and for a robot to understand those formalisms, it needs an interpretation, but the only way we can give it that interpretation is through more formalisms.
So, it's a never-ending loop of symbols interpreting symbols, with no connection to the real world?
That's the crux of it. AI is trapped in an infinite regress of syntactic representation. It can't access the embodied, semantic grounding that humans have through sensory experience.
So, the limit of formalizability is the ultimate barrier between human and artificial knowledge?
That's the argument. It doesn't mean AI is useless. It just means it will always be fundamentally different from human intelligence, and that has big implications for how we think about science, math, and even philosophy.
Okay, let's dive into that. How does this theory change the way we see those fields?
Well, it starts by saying that science, math, and philosophy aren't these disembodied, perfect ideals. They're sociobiological constructs rooted in that cognitive revolution sparked by written language.
So, they're not separate from human experience. They're extensions of it?
Exactly. The theory defines scientific reasoning as a combination of basic human understanding and communication, plus the use of tools that extend our senses, like microscopes and telescopes. And these aren't just instruments, they're extensions of our minds, built on the foundations of written language.
So, science isn't some radical departure from common sense. It's just a more systematic and technologically enhanced version of it?
Precisely, and that challenges the traditional divide between the hard and soft sciences. The theory argues that the differences are just a matter of complexity, not of fundamental kind.
So, studying human behavior is just more complicated than studying planetary motion, but the underlying principles are the same?
That's the idea, and it goes even further, saying there's no fundamental difference between science and art. They're just different ways of creating and communicating meaning about the world.
Okay, that's a pretty radical view. What about mathematics? Where does that fit in?
The theory says that mathematical objects aren't these transcendent, perfect forms. They're physical entities, concepts, thoughts, beliefs, all existing either in our brains or as external symbols.
So, math isn't something we discover, it's something we create?
Exactly. It's a product of the human mind, shaped by our cognitive architecture and expanded by written language, and the theory rejects the idea that math is infallible or eternal, arguing that our knowledge, including our mathematical knowledge, is a product of a fallible, evolving system.
So, math is a tool, not a reflection of some objective reality?
That's the conclusion. It's a socio-cultural ramification of written language, a powerful tool for modeling the world, but ultimately rooted in human experience, and if science is just an extension of common sense and math is a specialized language, what about philosophy?
Ah, the big one. Is philosophy obsolete?
The theory argues that we're living through the final stages of a philosophy to science transition. Traditionally, philosophy has dealt with questions that science couldn't yet answer.
So, philosophy is just a placeholder until science catches up?
That's the argument. The theory claims that philosophy lacks a unique domain or methodology, and that its traditional tools like logic and conceptual analysis are now essential tools of science itself.
So, scientists are becoming the new philosophers?
In a way, yes. The theory argues that scientists are now the ones tackling the big foundational questions, using the tools of science to explore the nature of reality. And it's a pretty radical conclusion, right?
It is. So, if we boil it all down, what's the main takeaway from this theory?
The rise of AI is forcing us to rethink what knowledge is. We need to move beyond abstract ideas and ground our understanding in a physicalist, evolutionary framework.
So, knowledge is a sociobiological process built on a material foundation, Written language was a game changer, and AI has fundamental limits because it can't replicate the embodied, semantic grounding of human thought.
You nailed it. AI can be a powerful tool for expanding our knowledge, but it will never replace human understanding.
So, the future is a partnership, but with clear roles.
Exactly. AI can crunch the numbers and find the patterns, but humans will always be needed to create meaning, formulate theories, and ultimately understand the world.
Wow, that's a lot to digest, and it really makes you think about the future of AI and our place in it.
Definitely, and that's all the time we have for today. Hopefully, this has given you some food for thought about the nature of knowledge and the challenges of artificial intelligence.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.